Rolling.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Everything's good?
Apologies in advance if I ramble. I do that a lot.
Oh, you're good. Anything like any mistake or anything, we can just repeat the question.
Beautiful.
And we can start back from the start.
Yep.
What is your name and what is your role on the podcast?
My name is Alex Giovanni Francesco Papalia, and my role of the podcast is owner and pretty much everything else, really. I mean, I do a lot of work behind the scenes. I'm pretty much the main face, the voice, pretty much everything for the podcast, yeah.
What was the podcast name?
So the podcast name is The Back Four Podcast. I originally came up with that when me and my mate started the podcast originally. I got a lot of stick for that, but when I said, all right, you lads come up with a name, no one offered to throw another suggestion in the ring, so that was just what stuck.
When did you start the podcast?
Oh, okay, so we started in 2022. The original idea for the podcast came probably about, I'd say, May, June of 2022. I was sitting around with three of my friends, Toby, Ruben, and Daniel. I've been friends with these guys for a long time, and we were all sitting around eating KFC after playing some football. And I said to them, as a joke, lads, why don't we start a football podcast, because we talk about football so much. And just from that point on, just the idea just stuck, I guess. We collected the bottles, like the plastic bottles and stuff like that, for containers for change. Worked our way up to about, I'd say, $600 and built a homemade setup for about $600 out of my friend Daniel's shed. So that was pretty much it there. And we recorded our first episode, I think, December 2022. We recorded 7 episodes and then went on hiatus for a bit after that.
What topics does the podcast usually cover?
Just anything about football. I mean, the original podcast episodes that we did, like I said, 7 episodes. It was pretty much just Premier League, European football, Champions League. First 2 episodes were just solely focused on the World Cup that year. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Recently, since then, I've moved a lot more towards covering Australian football, stuff like that. Majority of my audience and subscribers and stuff like that are Australian. And obviously, Australian football being something very close to my heart, I find it a lot easier to be able to sort of connect with my audience on a more emotional sense with topics that face Australian football rather than, with an English audience that I don't really have yet. So, yeah, I'd say mostly Australian football.
Yeah. So what type of audience are you trying to reach?
I don't really think I have a specific audience in mind, to be honest. I mean, my audience sort of ranges from, 13, 14-year-old kids that have reached out to me and said that they're big fans to, 55, 60-year-old journalists that have said they've listened to my stuff and it's really good. I even had a professional footballer in Serie A reach out to me and says he watches my podcast to learn how to speak English because he wants to move his family to Australia at some point. I was just like, wow, that's just crazy. But I never really sort of set out with just a specific audience in mind. It was sort of just, create content that I enjoy doing, and if people like it, they like it. If they're 13, 45, 87, I don't really mind too much. I make content for anyone that's willing to listen to it.
So what was sort of like the inspiration of starting the podcast?
Like I said, it was just, we always used to play on the same futsal team, and afterwards we'd always go to McDonald's every week, and we just sit there for 2 hours just discussing football every week. And we were like, as a joke originally, it was just like, oh, let's start a podcast, lads. And then it just sort of came about, and we enjoyed the hell out of it. But just at some point, people have uni and they have work and stuff like that. It's just, some of the fun gets sucked out of it a bit, and then also it's just having a set time aside to commit. It's just very difficult. The inspiration behind sort of what I'm doing now with Australian football and stuff like that, after the podcast ended, I sort of just felt like I had heaps of just creative energy. I just needed to get out and just put it into something. So I did a telethon charity stream last year. We raised money for telethon. I think we raised something over $200, something like that. where it was like a 24-hour stream. I just sat down for 24 hours and just watched football. But I found out that I actually had a bit of an audience there that was still sort of alive and kicking. And then I had a trip to Sydney earlier this year in January, where I sort of vlogged a bunch of football matches, and I had a lot of Australian fans being like, you know what, we really like this content, you should keep doing this. So yeah, the inspiration just sort of came for the came from the support I was getting on my more recent content.
Yeah. How would you describe the channel to a stranger?
Oh God, it's a guy who thinks he knows more than what he does about football, sitting down and trying to convince people that he actually knows something, when in reality I'm just speaking absolute dross. Like, my most successful video is a video where I discussed police brutality among sort of police and sort of soccer and football fans. And yeah, I mean, I just spent the entire video just ranting about it. Like, I didn't give any sort of detailed analysis. Well, I gave, accounts from where I could, but a lot of my videos like that, where it's just me ranting, it's just me giving my personal opinions. So I'd say the channel is mainly just a passionate Australian football fan just giving his opinions on whatever the hell he wants to give his opinions on.
So what's your goal with your channel?
Oh God. Originally our goal was just to enjoy making content, but then obviously we stopped. But since I've sort of picked it back up, I just want to see how far I can take it. I've always had an interest in football ever since I was a kid. I started playing at 4 years old. So this game has been majority of my life. So I've always wanted to be a pro footballer as a kid. Obviously didn't work out, just like it does for most people. But I'd say my main goal with it is to try and pursue a career in punditry or just content creation around football in general. That's sort of my dream job. And I think the podcast is a good way for me to not only build connections, but to sort of grow my audience and sort of just be able to interact with certain people in the community. I mean, the amount of people that I've been fortunate enough to meet and interact with because of the opportunities that I've gotten from doing YouTube and stuff like that is just crazy. So I just want to see how far I can take it, really.
What future plans do you have for the podcast?
Oh, okay. So I'm planning on having a very big year this year, around sort of May to July to August, I guess. We've got heaps of international football on, the Euros. The Australia's playing in the Olympics, hopefully. You got Olympic football, stuff like that. So it's going to be a very big winter for me. In terms of my more larger plans, I'm planning to do the telethon charity live stream again this year. I'm debating whether I do 24 hours or 56 hours, and the reason there's such a big jump is because this year's the 56th year of telethon. So I sort of had an idea of doing 24 hours on Twitch, 24 hours on YouTube, and having an 8-hour sleep in between. But my friend gave me the idea of, you do a subathon. So for every sub you get, you add 10 minutes to your timer. And I was like, great. So I could either, be streaming for 24 hours, having an 8-hour sleep, or I can have a 20-minute nap. So it sounded fun, but I enjoyed the charity aspect of it, just being able to sort of give to something that's just, bigger than myself. And I feel it's also a good way to sort of interact with my community and make them feel like they're part of something as well. And it was very successful last year, so I'm hoping it will be even better this year, but yeah, we'll just wait and see, I guess.
What other content or social media do you have?
So obviously the Backville podcast, my main sort of pride and joy with content creation. I also recently started up a Perth Glory specific podcast, the Shed End podcast. You can find that on YouTube. You can find it on Twitter at the Shed End Pod. I also recently started up my own. It's going to be a bit of a weird jump, but I started up my own sort of esports, I guess, team or organization, Soccer X. So that's SOKKAH-X. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, soccer.x, and on Twitter at SoccerX. But yeah, these are just three of the things that I've got going. Maybe I'll add more at some point, but it's stressful enough as it is. Like, I don't know if I can do much more at this stage, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the sort of struggle and the grind, having to make content, but yeah, I enjoy it heaps.
Was there anything you wanted to cover or anything else you wanted to say specifically?
Maybe not anything in specific. Just thank you to all the people that have supported me from the start of the channel up until now. It's been a hell of a run. Got a long way to go. I'm looking forward to it. Heaps of content planned for this year, so stay tuned for that. And more importantly, subscribe to the Back 4 podcast if you're not already. This is your warning right now. We're heading towards 500 subscribers. We need to get there before October. So subscribe to the Back 4 podcast today. And anything else? Hate you. Anyways, thank you very much for all your support. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good.